rainy Sunday morning, and we are here on 87.7 FM. Those of you who are listening in on your devices, on TuneIn, on Facebook, on YouTube, wherever you're listening, last day of Ramadan, last day for giving. Last day of giving, but of course, you have to continue the spirit of Ramadan, the essence of Ramadan throughout the month. Now, you are welcome to call me on 0116-482-2086 and you can wish Eid Mubarak to everybody in your city or your country, anywhere in the world. Or you can even WhatsApp me on 077-488-55055. Now, the first person who calls or the first person who will send us a WhatsApp, we're going to give them 2 tickets for the Leicestershire County Cricket Club, a match. My producer will tell me the exact date, and you're welcome to go and visit there and have a good day out with your partner, with your friend, with whoever you wish to go with at the Leicestershire County Cricket Ground. So today is day 30. On this day, Allah make our fast worthy of appreciation and acceptance according to what pleases you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and may the messenger branches being strengthened by the roots for the sake of our leader, Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam Muhammad. And let us all ensure that we are all purified from this month. May Allah accept our fast and may Allah make it easy for us for the preceding 11 months. Brother Hussein, who is joining us today, Brother Hussein Mehdi, Jazakallah khair for your presence today on this last day of Ramadan. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Hussein.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Brother Zed, it's so nice to be with you again.
Yeah, but the problem is, Brother Hussein, your tempo, your energy levels, it's this last day.
It is the last day. Okay, we shall increase the tempo slowly. Yeah, I need to build up
You got to be full of energy like me, Brother Hussein. You got to be ready to go.
Well,
you know, that's how you got to be.
No, your energy levels. You have to zedify me.
You got to be zedified for sure. Now, brothers and sisters, this is the last day, right? We don't know whether we will be here in this dunya next year. We don't know. We are going from Ramadan to Ramadan, and we just have to excel in our good deeds, Brother Hussein.
Well, I pray for your good health and your lengthy life so that you can continue with your excellent work, Zed, and for the benefit of your local community and society, the wider society at large, especially with there's so many charitable things that you're doing abroad in Uganda, Africa, and elsewhere. It is absolutely wonderful. I want you to take me with you on maybe not this next trip because I think it's happening soon, but on one of your trips. Take me to Uganda. Show me what you are doing over there.
I would absolutely relish that moment for you to come along. And we're taking, in fact, 4 youngsters, 2 boys, 2 girls, who are our future prospective politicians. We had them here in the studio yesterday. We had 3 of them here yesterday in the studio. 2 of them aspire to become councillors. And they are on a mission to learn. And if we can find at least 30 of them, we can set up a little training school for them in community engagement, community development, and we get all the counselors to come and talk to them because we have to embrace change. We have to embrace the digital technology, Brother Hussein. Right now, what we have is
very important.
Everything is regional. So if, for example, you have one community living in one area, a counselor is pitched from that particular area to suit that community. And that is something we have to change because the communities are so diverse that there is no such thing as only one particular community there. There are 50 other diversities that have joined us, yeah? So we have...
like in Uganda, you have a diversity in Uganda as well, yes?
Yeah, we also have Brother Osama who has joined us. So we'll say salam to him. All the presenters, we are getting them together and we're going to have a little bit last day reflection of the month of Ramadan and we're going to talk about different topics. Now, the 3 of you are what we call our overseas Zoom presenters or guests. So, Brother Osama, if you're listening in right now, is our producer is going to join him, and the producer is also going to have fun with all three of you. We're going to have one guest after another today, right? Throughout the 1 hour session today.
So you've not introduced the third guest.
Well, the third guest joining us today is Dr. Saima from all the way from Philly. It's a short for Philadelphia, all the way from USA. So if all of you can be on one platform and we can show you all a sign of unity amongst all of you. You know, we're getting ready for Eid, aren't we? Are we ready for Eid? All of you?
We are indeed. I'm having Eid tomorrow. Some people may have it on Tuesday. For me, Eid is tomorrow.
Yeah, so the three of you are our overseas representatives on Radio Ramadan, so we can capture the world. Here, we start local, then we go national, and then we go global. So the three of you are G for global. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Hussein, Dr. Saima. How are you this morning?
Walaikum assalam. Thanks for having me once again on the show. Last week running for Ramadan.fm.
That's
How's
right.
everyone been?
Saima, how are you? Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again. Was it a year?
Same.
Has it been a year since?
It's been a little bit less than a year. Yeah, because I think the lunar year is shorter. So I think roughly a year. Yes, you're right. Absolutely right.
And Assalamu alaikum, Brother Husama. Are you in Cairo? Are you in Dubai? Are you in Russia? Where are you today?
I'm actually in Birmingham. It's just as exotic.
You are in Birmingham in the Midlands?
Yeah, in the Midlands. It's certainly not Alabama.
That is certainly another one of you in a different location every weekend, Brother Osama. You are a traveler in time.
I'm a nomad. Yeah. I have the nomad gene in me.
Of course. And of course, you get to learn so much. You embrace so many different diversities. And, throughout this week, we are talking about community partnerships in our city. And we like to think that we are going to be the beacon for other cities to follow our good work and our good formula, which is to bring together 12 community organizations on one platform so they can do some cross-networking with each other. So we can dispel the us and them, which has been going on for a long time. Brother Osama, do you have that situation in Birmingham?
No, I've been off the scene for about 11 years. 11 years, yeah, it's been a long time. So I don't really get that much of a interaction with the community at all. Just come, see the kids, and then go back. I barely spend any time here.
So, of course, you are an expat, aren't you? Or are you an expat or are you an immigrant? Which one are you when you go back to Dubai, UAE?
I don't know. I've never really gave it much thought. I just, wherever I lay down my head, that is my home. I don't really think about it.
So you are a world citizen, aren't you?
Yeah, I suppose I am, yeah.
So what I'm going to ask you now is, are you citizen category 1 or category 2?
Oh, no, definitely. According to the new provisions, we're a citizen category 2.
You as well? And what about Brother Hussein? Are you category 1 or category 2?
What can you explain these categories for me? Because I'm the only categories I know are the Platonic categories.
I see.
So explain these to me, please.
Now, I'm going to now let Dr. Saima learn about the UK citizens' new charter. So, Brother Hussein, you are well familiar with it because you've been.
Is this where your citizenship could be taken away from you, depending as to whether you have another home?
Well, Brother Hussein, I'm going to let Brother Osama take the lead on this and explain to us in detail. Brother Osama?
Yeah, look, I mean, the law has always been there. I think the fact that now you have governments that are now prepared to make more use of it, and certainly to apply it to a broader number of categories, is what is concerning. But the law, I mean, the UK has always been able to deprive people of their citizenship, but it's it used to be just on basis of either national security or on the basis of treason, things that undermine, the essence of this state. 2003 was a watershed moment in that it was actually a Labour Home Secretary who decided to slightly widen the scope to encompass behavior which was effectively deemed to be offensive, even though no commission of a crime had been undertaken. And there seems to be a further widening of that now to include serious crime. Now, what is deemed to be a serious crime becomes a matter of interpretation. Before they also needed to serve you with a notice to deprive. Again, now they are trying to dispense with that. So essentially, it does create a two-tier citizenship system where you have one tier of those, let's assume, and I'm more interested really on the basis of being a criminal lawyer, on the basis of those who are deprived of their citizenship on the basis of commission of a crime. One, who defines what a serious offense is? Who gives that definition? And what is serious to one person may be not so serious to another, and vice versa.
So I'll just bring in Dr. Saima on that. What do you know about this new Citizens Charter in the UK, Dr. Saima?
I do not, but I will weigh in from a health perspective. So to the question of what determines a serious crime or not, I think there's a couple of factors that play into it, from the capacity and the competency of the perpetrator. You would know better than I would, being a lawyer, about that. But doesn't it also depend upon, the intent being proven, and also, the evidence that goes with it? I mean, the bill and the charter is something totally new to me. In the US, for instance, we have no such bills or laws. There is some kind of there's been actually a drive to overcome all of this in the form of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and inclusivity for the LGBTQ and all other subgroups and subcultures. And I think that it's more accepting of people and their viewpoints, rather than isolating and putting them aside. This is sort of been happening in the last couple of years since COVID. We've talked about it in the last show as well. So I think we're more assimilated here in the US than we may have imagined ourselves to be in the UK. Is that right?
The US is a special case. I mean, it is actually unique in terms of its libertarian trend. I mean, look. The US was born out of, effectively, what were, generally speaking, libertarians. There was a movement which opposed any form of totalitarianism or authoritarianism. So there's always that streak in the US for liberty, one of which is, of course, propagated by the right to free speech. And so on. So there's a much wider spectrum in the US of acceptance of others, despite of its history. It's a kind of ironic, because there's actually, US is a kind of a schizophrenic type of a state, because it was built on ideals that essentially are great. When you look at the Constitution of the US, it's a magnificent document. The way it's been practiced is another matter. But at least in the US, there is the groundwork to go back to the Constitution and say, actually, you know what? The law says that. In Europe, that doesn't really exist to the same extent as it does in the US. And I'll give you an example. I mean, in Europe, much is made about the European Court of Human Rights. But little do people realize is when it came, and now this is a new trend in Europe, of course. Before it used to be deportation of residents in the European Union and European countries. You could deport people for committing crime. We have no basis for having foreign criminals here. What people don't realize is there was a case from Austria where somebody was deported because he was speeding. He got a fine. So what I'm saying is, who defines what the crime is that will merit a deportation? And in this case, it becomes deprivation of citizenship. And for me, fundamentally, I think it undermines the concept of equal rights before the law when you have two tiers of citizenship. One which allows somebody to have his citizenship withdrawn, even though he may not have committed an offense, by the way. It doesn't need to be necessarily commission of an offense. But let's assume they do commit an offense. Why should one person be imprisoned, serve his time, and then come out and resume his life to the best that he can back in the country where he's always lived? And another person be said, well, actually, now you've served the time, you're in an equally similar position as to what we call the first tier, but you also have got to go somewhere else, to a place perhaps where you have no connections at all.
But they will not let somebody go to another place unless they have citizenship in the other country. Whereas in the US, I mean, even if the person was born in the UK, they could still be deprived of their citizenship if they have access to another citizenship. Whereas in the US, the law is, if someone is born in the US and is a US citizen by birth, they cannot deport him or remove his citizenship, even if he had another citizenship. So citizenship becomes a right at birth in the US. It seems to me that the law in this country is not like this. The case with this, what was her name? Begum. I mean, she was asked to go to Bangladesh, but the Bangladeshi authority says, we will not accept her. She does not have Bangladeshi citizenship. Whereas the British Foreign Office stance was that, well, she has a right to a citizenship through descent in Bangladesh. So they are even interpreting the laws and regulations of other countries.
Well, I'm going to take you all back to Australia. How did Australia emanate all those years ago when they were sending the prisoners to Australia? So are we going to see another Australia somewhere near Rwanda?
Australia is an interesting. It's an interesting experiment. Let's just leave it at that. But the difficulty is, even those who were sent to Australia were not deprived of their citizenship. They were exiled, but they weren't deprived of their citizenship. This is a wholly different thing. This is essentially coming up with the concept that in Europe it is acceptable to have two-tier citizenship process.
And that we had that, right. By the way, Osama, we had that in Iraq under Saddam Hussein. We had the issue of two-tier citizenship.
Yeah,
and those who came from Iranian descent, even going back 3 generations, they were thrown out of the country in 2 waves. One in the 1970s, and the second one was in the year 1989, at the start of the Iran-Iraq war.
79.
79, sorry. About 500,000 people were thrown out of the country. They had no connection with Iran, but they were collected into trucks and they were dumped at the border, 500,000 of them. And there was very little news at the time in the Western media about the plight of these people, because at the time, the Western governments were, they were very friendly with Saddam Hussein. They were supplying him with weapons to fight his war with Iran.
I mean, we're digressing here to a certain extent, because first of all, we're talking about we're talking about
one at a time, please.
We're talking about the United Kingdom. We're not talking about Saddam Hussein's Iraq. We're talking about a United Kingdom that actually went to war illegally in 2003 to remove that particular government for one of the crimes is what you set out. Now, if the law is accepted, and actually, by the way, I mean this is something which I was speaking to somebody who's actually an Iraqi exile of that particular background. He's saying, well, actually, yeah, why should they have to tolerate with people? And again, this is the use of what you call the loaded racism. You know, why should they have to tolerate, say, let's say, a Pakistani who then commits a drugs offense? Why shouldn't he go back to Pakistan? And my argument in response to that was, then essentially, Saddam Hussein was a victim. He was actually hard done by. He was right. When he deported all those people, he actually was doing nothing more than what you are justifying the British government to have the power to do. It's either correct or it is incorrect. For me, fundamentally, a citizen is a citizen. If he commits an offense, you try him for that offense, you punish him for that offense, and if he's rehabilitated, you bring him back into the community. But you cannot have two ways of dealing, or a duplicitous way of dealing with the same fundamental underlying issue that you are trying to prohibit.
I want to bring it back to the ordinary citizen in our city, for example. How to explain to them about this citizen bill, because they do not understand exactly what has happened, what the implications are. It just seems like it was just done over a period of time, what we call under the carpet, and the implications of it are not at all advertised, not at all on our social media, and it affects even myself. I'm here as a Ugandan refugee in this country, so potentially I could be deported. Where to? Where will I be deported to, Brother Hussein?
You'll go back to Uganda, and you have to prove that you don't have citizenship in that country. And Zed, it could also mean, just because the British government doesn't like the views that you're expressing on Ramadan Radio, that could be deemed as enough of an offense for them to strip you of your citizenship, because you're spreading information which is not congenial to their policies.
Well, I'm going to take you now, all of you, back. Dr. Saima, this is a good historical lesson for you today. I hope you got your pen and paper ready and you're writing it down. So
I'm going to say something before you do that. So it almost seems like, and without laying blame on any one government or system of reform, here's what I see as an outsider. And I'm a Pakistani. I'm living in the US. We have none of these laws. There is always inherent racism and bias in judgments that are meted out to criminals and otherwise. But the point remains, it almost seems to me, from a historical perspective and philosophically, the United Kingdom has had its reign over so many regions of this world, and so that the sun never set in the British Empire at one point. And now that it has, and they've already, taken in all these refugees or post-colonial, ravages of war. They've accommodated. They've done their bit, so to say. So, in defense of the United Kingdom's efforts, I would say, don't you think they're a little bit overcrowded at this point? And that's one way of sifting through what they can keep and sustain, and what they can't.
Well, that's. I'll tell you what it is. That is, look, I agree. There has been an over, shall we say?
As in, amends have been made for years now,
okay,
decades.
Let me answer the overcrowding argument. Why is a place overcrowded in relation to some, but not overcrowded in relation to other skin colors?
It depends. Explain to us who the tiers apply to.
Right, I'll tell you what it is. I mean, the times of refugees, first of all, it's wrong to define the immigration from the Indian subcontinent into this country in the aftermath of the Second World War, and again, the Windrush generation, as them being refugees. They were invited into the country because there was a shortage of labor. So they were invited in. They contributed to the economy of this country.
They were assimilated in so many ways. And now they're saying, well, we're done assimilating.
No, well, whether they're assimilated or they're not assimilated, they're a fabric of this country. It wasn't the fault of a Jamaican or an Indian or a Pakistani after, let's say, after partition, that essentially the British decided to colonize their country. So essentially, so that is one thing. The British took out of India far, far more than what they have spent on bringing these workers across in the immediate aftermath of the Second World War. And they will continue to have benefited out of India in far more than what they will spend on the continuous immigration of people from the Indian subcontinent into the UK. Estimates of what the British took out vary between
Trillions.
25 trillion and 32 trillion pounds sterling. That is an unprecedented level of looting. Okay? So
certainly, if it's a numbers game, then there might be budgetary constraints, or there might be, things that can be done to curtail those kinds of limitations.
Dr. Simon, can I just add in here what Osama is referring to about like the discrimination? The UK government is encouraging almost 200,000 UK citizens to open their homes for Ukrainian refugees to come into the UK. So if there is space for 200,000 Ukrainian refugees by the 200,000 citizens who've been encouraged to receive them in their own homes, and for the British government to pay $300, almost $500 for each a month for each household that takes in a Ukrainian refugee, that shows that there is no overcrowding issue. They're happy to receive up to 200,000 Ukrainian refugees and pay for them.
So it's like an opportunity cost, it seems like, get one in and take the other out.
Well, it's not even like that, Dr. Simon. Dr. Simon, I find it quite, shall we say, worrying that when you arrive at Birmingham Airport, there's a desk saying, if you're a Ukrainian refugee, please register here, okay? Come and see what you're entitled to. So first of all, they're arriving by plane, okay? They're arriving on flights in safety. Yet there are people who are dark-skinned Africans, Asians, Kurds, who have to risk their life, drown into the channel, drown into the sea. If they're lucky, they will be put in a former army camp in Kent. That is the duplicitous approach. And those don't number in the hundreds of thousands. They only number in the thousands. So there's a tolerance of blonde-haired, blue-eyed, as somebody once said, they are like us, type of refugees. But there's an intolerance of dark-skinned refugees with black eyes.
Let's take the color equation out. I mean, there's people in the subcontinent who are not typically, who may not typically be, the skin color that you refer to. What about them? In society, once they're living there, if they're not carrying their immigrant card around or saying that we are from a certain country, and they look and assimilate and they look like the rest of the British population, then how are they treated?
No, but what is the average look of a British person? Why is there an assumption that a British person in this day and age, after all of the generations that have passed since the Second World War, must be European looking? Why is that presumption? I mean, it's kind of difficult. You want to take it out of the equation, but the people who are making the decisions have brought that into the equation.
I'm trying to figure out if we can give the benefit of the doubt to the UK government at all at this point. There must be something that redeems what has happened. Is there anything to say? We've only talked about one side of it, as in, no, this doesn't sound right, this is how it is. But to spread the awareness, spread awareness in a neutral fashion, what would you comment to that?
No, I'll tell you something. I would love for any government minister to come on and explain the difference in approach. It's great. Come and explain it to people. because at the moment the optics do not look right. The optics, the only difference you can see is skin color. I may be wrong. I am not gonna presume what their actual motivation is, okay? But somebody come and explain as to why 200,000 Europeans are being welcomed in, but there's an intolerance of, and they're being welcomed in on flights. I mean, Ryanair was putting on free flights for them, okay? How about the others that are stuck across the channel who are not Ukrainian? Why are they not being put on flights and being granted visa there to come into the UK? Why do they have to risk their lives to drown in the channel? Somebody come and explain that to them. But no one wants to explain it. And you take then, I suppose, you try and think, well, what is the inference that can be drawn? The distinction cannot be, I mean, the difference in approach and the duplicity cannot be explained. That's why no one wants to explain it.
Right. This is now a very contentious topic throughout the UK right now, Dr. Saima. And we're not going to...
As we understand, but I think to spread awareness, we just need to be aware of what the rights are and, things of that nature for our audiences.
Well, everything is...
Not to spread contention, but to spread, awareness, right?
Well, everything is not that way. There's not enough being... It's like a underground kind of situation. But let's go back to the Windrush scandal. A prominent minister had to resign because of that. Is the immigration that happened with the Windrush. The Windrush was the name of a ship that brought the West Indian community over in the 50s, or was it the 60s, around that period. And in the year 2020, the scandal is on the table and they want to return those refugees that came on the Windrush. Now, there were other ships as well, but the Windrush, for some reason, was pinpointed. So if rules can be amended 50 years later, that in itself is a huge scandal. And we are just living in insecurity. Our insecurity brings about many other social disorders. As you will understand, Dr. Saima, more than anybody, there are issues of mental health. So many other problems can arise.
The only difference that I see between the US and the UK, that is the Windrush causes a scandal and the Mayflower causes us a Thanksgiving here. So there's that stark difference in perspective between the US and the UK. We celebrate.
Yeah,
and
the US is kind of unique. Look, the US it started off as an inclusive mentality. I mean, the US has a constitution. I mean, if you go to New York, you see the Statue of Liberty. What it says is, give me your poor, your hungry, your huddled masses. Okay? In Britain, essentially, and Europe decided, no, we're going to put walls because we want to prevent your poor, your hungry, and your huddled masses yearning to be free. That is the mentality. America was born out of people fleeing Europe to escape the chauvinism and the oppression and poverty of Europe, to make a better life for themselves.
Religious persecution.
Yeah,
in some cases.
Absolutely.
Half of the population of Scandinavia emigrated to the US because of famine. And the same happened in Ireland with the potato famine. A lot of people from Ireland went across the US because of the potato famine.
So I will say to you, all of you listening in right now, migration is not a new phenomena. It has been happening since the beginning of time. The world would not be here today if it was not for migration. It's nothing new, and it's going to continue to happen, and we're going to have to learn.
Yeah, I mean, economic migrants have always happened throughout the history of humanity, ever since we stood up on 2 feet, Zed, we have been spreading around the earth. Now, the human race, the Homo sapiens, the latest of the animal races, have spread the most throughout the planet. There's 8 billion of us around the planet. You can't have them all in one geographic area. They're bound to go and travel around and migrate.
And that's
I
what...
mean, look, I'll give you ancient examples in ancient history. I mean, what is the story of Nabi Yusuf if it is not economic migration? Why? And by the way, the Europeans glorify Joseph, so they accept economic migration when it's written in the Bible, but somehow economic migration, when it's in a modern day context, is unacceptable. Political migration or political persecution, again, I think I spoke to you about it in another program. Well, I mean, it's the story of Moses. That is what you call escape from political persecution. Again, a hero in modern day context, but now if you are doing the same, you become criminalized and you're a villain. There is, for some reason, an intolerance now to accept what is essentially natural. As I say, it's more in Europe than it is in the United States. I mean, look, the numbers that come every year into the United States makes the European migration crisis pale into significance.
Okay, now, guys, we got to close that topic now and bring it back to Ramadan, and let's get positive. Dr. Simon, what's been happening in your region during the month of Ramadan? Give me some positive topics. Like my producer here is asking, what kind of foods were you relishing?
Alhamdulillah, all kinds of cuisines from all over the world. We're a very diverse society in my part of the world. So not just the Pakistanis and Indians from South Asia and Bengalis, but we have Arabs, Muslims, predominantly in my neighborhood. So we've been enjoying a lot of Arab food, Middle Eastern, Greek, Turks. You know, it's been good.
So very, very diverse community over there. Yes?
Yes.
In Philadelphia. So diversity has been very, very much talked about during the month of Ramadan. So Brother Hussein, how has it been for you in your area where you reside?
I am blessed by a very wonderful neighbor of mine who brings me food
every day,
almost every week during Ramadan. I mean, last night or 2 nights ago, he brought me a plate full of Asian delicacies, you know, like the samosas and the chicken nuggets, like, you know, Asian style. Absolutely wonderful neighbor. Biryani he brings me. I say, Iqbal, I have so much food in the fridge. He says, no, still, just eat. And he's such a wonderful sharing neighbor. Amazing.
Of course, can you kindly give him our address at the Radio Ramadan, because I'd like to put that to a test to see if it's actually happened. And Brother Osama, what's been happening in your different parts of the world? You've been traveling from Egypt. You went also to, where else did you go, Brother Osama?
I think other than Cairo, I got to admit the best time in Ramadan I had was actually that weekend in Cairo. Great to have an early morning meal with friends, good weather, out in the open, and a nice iftar on the Nile. Other than that, no. I mean, I think for me it was difficult because, as you know, and you've eaten there. My favorite restaurant, unfortunately, was closed down just before Ramadan, so I was struggling to find a suitable place to have my iftar, and just settled into the normal routine of a tabbouleh and a lentil soup.
So nothing much happening. We are also relating as to the community spirit. Now we've had an iftar every day with different persons coming here. And I recall one gentleman, Chris Marshall, he came and joined us because we made it a point to invite people from different diversities so that they can also enjoy iftar. Now, what Chris told me, that it's amazing. He said, I've seen that preceding COVID, all the Muslims, they were very much concerned, and straight away They were happy to go back to their mosques. And he says, what we did, I said, what did you do then? He said, we just run straight to McDonald's. Right? That's what we did. He says, we headed straight to McDonald's, we hit the Pizza Hut, and that's what we did. And he said, unfortunately, Zed, I'm ashamed to say that faith is disappeared here in the UK. Faith is disappeared. So
faith has taken over the space for US franchises, it sounds like.
That's right. And this is how...
It's the most popular culture being exported, so why not? Well,
these are all the addictive foods that your body is desperate for. Every addiction, brothers and sisters, is not good for you, whatever the addiction is, right? And he was telling us, Chris was telling us, being here in this kind of atmosphere is just amazing. And this is what we have to all do. We have to engage with the non-Muslims to sit them down and join us and share with us our commonality rather than our differences. And Chris was saying that the British have lost sense of community spirit. And of course, how do you find that in your area?
Wasn't it Margaret Thatcher who once coined the phrase, there is no such thing as community?
You repeat that again, Brother Osama?
I think it was Margaret Thatcher who said there's no such thing as community. Yeah, I mean, they have lost a sense of community.
Of course, we have a generation now, they don't even know who's Margaret Thatcher, right? I have people sat here in our producer's office and they're nodding to say, who's Margaret Thatcher?
Oh, the Iron Lady. Probably the last competent prime minister of Britain. But she had her faults. One of those was her general disdain for communities.
Do you recall Margaret Thatcher, Dr. Sarma?
Of course, yeah, very much from our times.
That's right. And here...
And so community, so there are these prevalent tropes in society. It seems like in the UK, immigration has also become a trope in itself. And, there's some things need to be done to unravel the mysteriousness around it. And I think it's more about how Zed and I have been pointing out how people in communities live within bubbles. So I think there's something to be said about not belonging to a specific community and diversifying and then belonging to the rest of the world. And how we mingle and how we invite, like you guys have been inviting people for iftar, how teaching them about the ways, understanding that from both ends. The fact that it's not just about abstention, it's about detox. Say, for instance, it's not an addiction. It's not about going to your feeding into your latest addiction, but it's about doing that for gratitude to your body and your soul and your spirit. And if you can teach that as the lesson learned, in the US, we have a little joke at home. My daughter goes to school. She's the only Muslim in her class. She presents on Ramadan and she fasts, and the girls are like, not even water. And we're going to have a T-shirt that's printed, not even water, So something that makes it lighthearted, yet easy to grasp as a concept. I think that would go a long way.
Well, but, the mystery, the mystery of it is kind of dispelled now, because don't forget, there was a Liverpool against Newcastle match yesterday, and 3 of the players who participated were fasting. Naby Keita, Mohamed Salah, and Sadio Mane. So essentially, it brings into perspective for people that actually, it's not as taxing as we may think, because these guys are running around the football pitch for 90 minutes without water and without food.
I think it does affect their performance, Osama. It must be affecting their performance.
I don't know. Naby Keita played out of his skin yesterday. I don't know. It depends.
Did they win?
Yeah, they won 1-0, which is good.
Who were they playing against?
Newcastle.
Right. Now, I'm going to move on.
Fasting, they could have done it. They could have had a 3-0 score. I do yoga just before iftar, about a couple of hours before iftar. And, when I have normal meals and water, I can do an hour and a half of yoga, no problem. But I struggle with half an hour of yoga during Ramadan. It is taxing.
Well, I got to tell you,
I can tell you from personal experience that's how you train your body, and your body gets adjusted to it. Even in Ramadan. Ramadan is no big deal for Muslims who practice a lot of discipline prior to it. You have to train your body to get into the mode.
Absolutely.
You start a month before or 2 months before, if you have like caffeine addiction, you kind of lessen that, and it just goes really easy. For us as physicians, we're used to working longer hours, all kinds of conditions. I am not one to complain. I'll go to the gym when I have to, Ramadan or no Ramadan. I'll do my activities of daily living within the confines of the schedules that Ramadan sets. So perhaps the only thing is a little bit of sleep deprivation.
Okay, guys, we're going to move on now. We're going to move on. Yeah. I'm going to now tell you about yesterday. Iftar yesterday was a full house, and we had most of the local councillors in this region, about 10 of them, and we had our MP for this area. He came and we did a program with him. Then we did the iftar with him. And we had 3 aspiring young persons who want to be councillors. And one of them was only 10. And the highlight of the evening was when he put his hand up and he said, I don't have a clue what you're all talking about. And that brought a laugh to everybody. And he was so keen, he was listening attentively, and he was giving his opinions. And the 28-year-old one, we had another one, a 23-year-old. And when I looked around the table, I said, look, all of these seasoned veterans, they are all, I would say, past the age of 55, and they're still doing that job. And unless we bring our younger people on the table, we're not going to have a progressive society. That applies to anywhere in the world. We have to bring our youngsters on the table. Then the other highlight of the evening was the issue of Islamophobia, where awareness is simply not getting through enough to our councillors, to our members of parliament. Seems like we talk about it forevermore, ever since 9/11, and Islamophobia is never on the menu. It's just a side dish, and it's stepped over. And the attacks are increasing by the day. Yesterday in our city, we had a car attempting to run over 3 pedestrians right outside of a mosque. Wow. And this is a horrific incident in this city. And we've had these kind of incidents before. They're happening across the country, and it's absolutely not acceptable.
But I don't think you can guarantee these kind of events do not happen. Whether there is Islamophobia or there is no Islamophobia, these things are bound to happen. And obviously the media plays a very, very important role in this, in increasing the hate, like in increasing the idea of, they are different, they are the other, yeah? So the person who goes, the white British person who goes and fights in Ukraine and dies, like happened with 2 guys, they're probably seen as heroes. But those from the Muslim community who go elsewhere in the Middle East and do the same, they are seen as terrorists, even though they were encouraged to go there in the first place by the media and some politicians.
So I'm going to give the 3 of you a little bit of homework, so we can try to find out what is the way to deal with this issue of Islamophobia. Everybody throughout the country is going to be affected. Now, every brown-skinned person, nobody knows that this person is not a Muslim. They are Sikhs wearing a turban. They're even looked at as being Taliban, or historically we've seen these cases. And
then some of them were killed in the U.S. during the 9/11.
So we've had some very sorry incidents.
So
for mistaken identity.
Yeah. So we all have to work on this together, because this is our next generation, our children, our grandchildren. And if we sit back and ignore what's happening, then we will absolutely be poorer for it. So I think there's a lot of input required from everybody in our community, across the communities. So our Member of Parliament, I requested that we should all sit down together and we should discuss this in detail, not just talk about it, but we have to have an objective that straight after we need to implement these objectives. Otherwise, we're wasting our time just talking about it. How many years can we talk about it? And these incidents are not reducing, they are increasing. So what are we doing wrong, Brother Osama?
I don't think it's anything that we're doing wrong. It's just, it seems that you can talk about it as much as you want, but average person's priority in this day and age is completely different to utopia. I mean, people are struggling just to make ends meet. And when they are continuously fed a narrative that the reason why they are poor is a result of immigrants, whether they're Muslim or otherwise, it just makes them resentful. I really don't know how it can be dealt with. I just don't see room for optimism, other than the fact that you have to be optimistic, otherwise the picture is just despairing.
Zed, I think the issue of faith is also important here, because, like, as Muslims, our book invites us and recognizes diversity, and it says that all people, we have created you out of male and female, and we made you into peoples and tribes. The best of you in the eyes of Allah are the ones who are most guarding of Allah. So when you have this kind of instruction that you are told about and educated about in the mosque, elsewhere, as having a strong faith, obviously it's bound to affect your mindset. But if in a community where there is no faith except, say, materialism and individualism, you got to look after number one. Number one is very important. Who is number one?
Right.
It's yourself.
Brothers and sisters, I'm going to give you some stats now for the radio to show you how effective your time has been, that it's not gone to waste. Now, what do you think the participation here at the radio was for the females and for the males? Let's put a little quiz for you.
70% female, 30% male.
And you, Brother Hussein?
I think it's probably more male than female. I'd say probably like 60-40.
And Dr. Saima?
I think at the current time, participation is, it's in the favor of females more. But when it started out, it may not have been the case.
Of course, the figures are 54% female and 46% male. Mm-hmm. So there is a trend here that the females are going ahead in professions, in number of them attaining their degrees in education. The females are going ahead. And we all have to be aware of these stats and so on. So, and we raised here at the radio, I won't ask you to guess because you're too far away to know, but we have raised a total of, on the Saturdays and Sundays when the charities come and do their pledges, we've raised £380,000 in that time.
Excellent work.
Amazing.
Now, we are down. I have to tell you that our peak was 500,000. Our target was 400 this year, because due to the factors that Brother Osama has brought on the table, and we are down to about 380. And we are encouraging all the charities that put some of that money back into some local projects so we can do some cross-bubbling, go from one area to another area, to do a little bit of investment there to show them that we, the Muslim community, care.
But the figure that you speak of is remarkable in one fact, because let's be honest, the vast majority.
Right, guys, I got to stop you now, Brother Osama, because we are closing now. And just a quick closing remark. We got 30 seconds only.
Eid Mubarak to everyone.
And Brother Hussein?
Eid Mubarak and the best of health for next year.
And Dr. Saima?
Eid Mubarak to everybody from across the globe.
Jazakallah khair for you wonderful people. May Allah bless you all, our presenters. We love you all for the sake of Allah, and we shall join you